What if the most heroic moment in Avengers Endgame wasn't heroic at all? What if it was actually the start of the MCU's greatest nightmare? We all remember that ending. Steve Rogers, the man out of time, finally gets to go home. After returning all the Infinity Stones, he doesn't jump back to the present. He chooses a different life. A life with Peggy Carter. It feels like the perfect tear-jerking finale for a guy who sacrificed everything. He earned that happy ending, right? But what if that one seemingly selfless choice was actually the most catastrophic decision in the entire MCU? What if by chasing his own happiness, Steve Rogers accidentally created the one monster who could burn it all down? Forget everything you think you know about that quiet dance in the 1940s. That wasn't an ending, it was an origin story. Because today we're going to break down piece by devastating piece how Steve Rogers' decision to stay in the past didn't just break the timeline, it created the perfect, horrifying conditions for the rise of a villain more cunning, more ruthless, and even more powerful than Thanos. It created the perfect storm for Victor Von Doom. To see how a hero's love story becomes a villain's origin, you first have to understand the crime scene, and make no mistake, from a time travel perspective, what Steve did was a cosmic level felony. Let's just quickly recap the rules laid out in Endgame. Bruce Banner and the Ancient One couldn't have been more clear. Changing the past does not change your future. It just creates a new, branching timeline. The whole reason they had to return the stones was to prune those dangerous new realities. So when Steve decided not to come back, he wasn't just living a quiet life in the background of our history. That's a nice thought, but it completely ignores the rules the movie set up. The second he chose to stay, he created the biggest, most unstable branch timeline you can imagine. Think about it. Loki stealing the Tesseract created a Nexus event so bad the TVA had to step in. That was one choice. Steve Rogers living from the 1940s all the way to the present? That's not one choice. That's a lifetime of Nexus events. Every single day he was in that past. He was a walking, talking time bomb. A man with decades of future knowledge just existing. Even if he tried to lay low, his presence alone would cause ripples. This is the butterfly effect on steroids. Who did he talk to? What quiet advice did he give Peggy over dinner? What offhand comment about a future tech or a political disaster might have changed how SHILD operated? What if he couldn't stop himself from preventing a tragedy he knew was coming? Each tiny action would send shockwaves through history, changing this new timeline in fundamental ways. Now look, even the writers and directors of Endgame have different opinions on this. The directors agree it's a branch timeline, while the writers think he was always in the main timeline's past. But based on the MCU's own rules, especially after what we learned in the Loki series, the branch timeline is the only one that really holds up. Steve's choice wasn't a peaceful retirement, it was the birth of an entirely new universe. A universe that looks a lot like ours, but is critically dangerously different. And it's in those differences, in the cracks of Captain America's perfect life, that Dr. Doom starts to grow. So we have a new timeline. What does a world with a secret time-traveling Steve Rogers actually look like from 1948 onwards? He wouldn't be running around in a suit, obviously. He'd try to live a normal life. But this is Steve Rogers we're talking about. The man is physically incapable of standing by and doing nothing when he knows people are in danger. It's just not in him. So his influence, no matter how quiet, will be massive. And it would start with the very organization he and Peggy built. SHIELD. Imagine Peggy Carter, one of the founders of SHIELD, now has a husband who knows everything about Hydra's 70-year plan to infiltrate it from the inside. He knows about Arnim Zola, Project Paperclip, the Winter Soldier program, all of it. Do you really think he'd just let that happen all over again? Not a chance. He would at the very least be whispering in Peggy's ear, giving her hints, pointing her at the shadows. The result? In this new reality, SHIELD is probably way stronger, smarter, and completely free of Hydra. Sounds great, right? A better SHIELD means a safer world. Well, this is where it all starts to go wrong. A super effective Hydra-free SHIELD, guided by the ghost of future knowledge, would completely reshape world politics. The Cold War would look different. Covert operations would change. The entire balance of power in Europe, which was still a wreck from Waishu, would be redrawn. And it's right there in the heart of this rewritten post-war Europe that we find a tiny fictional nation, a nation that's been hinted at near Sokovia, a nation called Latveria. In the comics, Latveria is a small, poor, and politically broken country. It's the kind of place that's just begging for a dictator to take over. This suffering is what creates Victor Von Doom. His entire story is tied to the political mess in his home. Now, let's drop that into our new timeline. With a more aggressive, American-led SHIELD meddling with the politics of Europe, what happens to a little country like Latveria? Maybe the pressure is even worse. Maybe this version of the Cold War is harder, and Latveria becomes a pawn in a much bigger, more brutal game. Or maybe SHIELD tries to stabilize the region by backing a new leader who turns out to be 10 times more monstrous than the original timelines. The exact details don't matter. The result is the same. The situation in Latveria gets worse. The oppression becomes more violent. The suffering of its people, especially the Roma, the group Victor and his family belong to, gets turned up to 11. Steve Rogers, trying to make the world a little safer, has, without ever even knowing it, made Latveria a living hell. He has cranked up the very instability and persecution that light the fire under a young, brilliant boy's quest for power. The happy life Steve is building in America is being paid for by the misery of a nation an ocean away, creating the perfect pressure cooker for a king to rise from the ashes. This new political landscape is the stage, but now let's talk about the man himself, Victor Von Doom. To get how Steve's timeline messes him up, we have to know who he is. At his core, Victor is a genius on a level that rivals anyone, even Reed Richards. He's the son of a healer and a sorceress from a persecuted tribe. His life is built on tragedy. His doctor father fails to save the wife of the local baron and is forced to flee, dying in the freezing cold while clutching a young Victor. His mother, Cynthia, was a powerful magic user who made a deal with the demon Mephisto, a deal that cost her her life and damned her soul for eternity. This turns Victor's life into a two-part obsession. First, gain enough power through science and technology to free his people and make sure no one can ever hurt him again. Second, master magic so he can literally storm the gates of hell and rescue his mother's soul. He's driven by grief, rage, and the absolute certainty that he's the only one smart enough and strong enough to fix the world. It's this mix of science and sorcery that makes him so dangerous. Now, let's put that man into the timeline Captain America made. First, his childhood trauma is even worse. Like we just said, the political climate in this new Latveria is way more brutal. The persecution of his people is more violent. His father's death isn't just a tragedy, it's an atrocity made worse by a political system that Steve Rogers unknowingly helped create. Victor's hatred for the ruling class is no longer just personal, it's a nationwide inferno. Eventually, Victor's genius gets him a scholarship to Empire State University in America, where he meets his great rival, Reed Richards. But in the Captain America timeline, the world of science he's stepping into would be different too. Think about the ripple effects. Howard Stark, a central figure in American tech, is now best friends with Peggy Carter, and by extension her husband, who knows about arc reactors, advanced flight, and alien tech. Even if Steve keeps his mouth shut, Peggy's life with him would change her perspective, which would in turn influence Stark, steering his work and all of American science in new directions. This means the experiment that scars Victor, the machine he builds to contact his dead mother, might be different. The tech might be more advanced, more volatile. The explosion that ruins his face isn't just an accident caused by his own arrogance. It's a catastrophic failure of technology that shouldn't even exist yet. Tech that only exists because of Steve's influence. His physical scars are now, indirectly, a present from Captain America. But the biggest change comes from the magic. Victor's quest to save his mother means he's already messing with the dark arts. In this new timeline, the magical world would be in total chaos. Why? The time heist itself. As the Ancient One warned, using the Infinity Stones to punch holes in reality and travel through time weakens the fabric of existence. It thins the veil between dimensions. For a young sorcerer like Victor Von Doom, who is actively trying to contact a demon like Mephisto, this is a massive opportunity. The magical barriers are weaker. Forbidden knowledge is easier to find. the whispers from hell are louder and more tempting. Steve's mission to fix time has, ironically, made it easier for Victor to talk to the very demon holding his mother's soul. The accident that scars him might not just be a lab explosion. It could be a mystical one too, a direct result of him getting a much stronger connection to a dark realm. A connection made possible by the mess the Avengers made. So what have we got? A Victor Von Doom whose childhood trauma is deeper, whose scientific world has been twisted, and whose access to dark magic has been supercharged. Steve Rogers didn't just create a world where Doom could exist. He created a world that methodically enhanced every single thing that makes Doom who he is. He accidentally built his own greatest enemy. There's one last piece to this puzzle. Every great villain needs a great hero to fight. For Dr. Doom, that hero, that rival, has always been Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four. Their rivalry is the stuff of Marvel legend. Reed is the one person Doom considers an intellectual equal, and the Fantastic Four are the only ones who have consistently stopped his plans for world domination. So, in the Captain America timeline, where are they? This is the most devastating consequence of Steve's choice. The Fantastic Four only exist because of a very specific accident. 4 specific people on an experimental spaceship getting hit with cosmic rays. The funding, the science, the timing of that launch, it's all a delicate house of cards. In a timeline that's been changed by 70 years of Steve Rogers' influence, the chances of those exact circumstances happening again are basically zero. Think about it. Howard Stark's new tech path might mean the science for Reed's ship is never even invented. The different political landscape might mean the space race never happens, so there's no reason for a risky private flight. In this new world, maybe Reed Richards never even meets Ben Grimm, Sue Storm, or Johnny Storm. Their lives, like countless others, are on totally different tracks. The result is a world where the Fantastic Four are never born, or at the very least their creation is delayed for years. Now, put yourself in Doom's shoes. You're newly scarred, full of rage. You flee America and go back home to Latveria. You find it in the exact state of chaos that Steve's timeline made worse. Using your unmatched genius in both science and supercharged magic, you overthrow the old tyrant. You take control. You make yourself the absolute ruler of Latveria. In the main timeline, this is when the Fantastic Four would show up and challenge you. But in this timeline, there's only silence. There's no challenge. There's no Reed Richards to stand in your way. There's no Fantastic Four. That lack of opposition is the final ingredient. Without his primary rivals, Victor's rise is completely unchecked. He can secure his power in Latveria with no interference. He can turn his nation into a technological paradise run with an iron fist. A terrifyingly successful example to the world. His Doombots, his weapons, his blend of magic and tech, it all gets developed without the heroes who should have been there to stop him. He doesn't just become a dictator, he becomes a global superpower, way faster and more effectively than he ever could have otherwise. By the time the rest of the world figures out what a threat he is, it's too late. He's already too powerful. Steve Rogers, by staying in the past, effectively erased his own replacements. He created a hero-sized power vacuum by making sure the one team destined to fight Doom never even existed. He not only forged the monster, he gave him a clear and open path to the throne. Let's just walk through this tragic chain of events one more time. It starts with a choice, a human choice, made by a man who had earned his rest. Steve Rogers stays in the past. That single act splits reality, creating a new timeline. In this timeline, his quiet presence subtly changes history. That altered history creates a more desperate political situation in Eastern Europe, which directly makes life in Latveria worse. This suffering hardens a young Victor Von Doom, fueling his rage. The ripples of Steve's influence also change the world of science, leading Victor to a much worse accident. The chaos of the time heist then tears the veil between worlds, giving him a direct line to the dark magic he was looking for. And to top it all off, the altered timeline erases the one team of heroes who could have stopped him, the Fantastic Four. His rise to power is completely unopposed. Every step is a direct consequence of the one before it, a horrifying chain reaction started by a single act of love. The ultimate hero in his final act didn't just retire. He accidentally built the ultimate villain. He created a Doctor Doom more powerful, more motivated, and more unstoppable than any version we can imagine. Captain America's legacy is no longer just about heroism. It's now tied to the massive shadow he cast. His happy ending is the prologue to the world's greatest nightmare. It's a tragic, ironic twist that reframes everything we thought we knew about Endgame. That wasn't the end of a saga. It was the beginning of the Age of Doom. So what do you all think? Is Captain America to blame for creating Doctor Doom? Is one hero's happiness worth unleashing a monster on the world? And how would this version of Doom fare against the MCU we know? Drop all of your theories and thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to see what you come up with. And of course, if you enjoyed this theory and want more like it, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for watching.